In the ruthless universe of the entertainment industry, beauty is often described as a gift. In reality, it can also be a sentence. It opens doors, but it rarely offers protection once those doors close behind you. For some, it leads to fame and fortune. For others, it becomes the very reason they are consumed by the system they once dreamed of conquering. Ren Jiao was 24 years old when her name first began circulating widely in Chinese media. With a delicate oval face, wide expressive eyes, and a poised elegance that cameras adored, she was quickly labeled Little Angela Baby. The comparison brought attention, opportunities, and admiration. But it also reduced her to a reflection rather than an identity. She was not introduced as herself, but as a replacement, a younger echo of a beauty that already existed and could one day be discarded. Behind the magazine covers and carefully staged photographs was a young woman driven by ambition. Born into a financially stable family, Ren Jiao did not chase survival. She chased recognition. Acting was not a hobby for her. It was a calling. She wanted to be seen, to be acknowledged, to disappear into other lives and emerge as someone unforgettable. Enrollment at the prestigious Beijing Film Academy seemed like the first real step toward that future. Yet the academy did not only teach performance. It exposed an unspoken rule that governed the industry beyond the classroom. Talent and appearance were necessary, but they were never sufficient. What mattered most was backing, connections, protection. In a system where opportunities were controlled by a small circle of power brokers, success often depended on who stood behind you, not what you could do in front of the camera. According to multiple accounts from within the industry, Ren Jiao found that protection early. Or more precisely, it found her. Zhou Benshan, a towering figure in Chinese entertainment, became her mentor. Officially, it was a relationship of teacher and student. Publicly, it appeared respectable and reassuring. Privately, many would later question the true cost of such patronage in a world where nothing of value was ever given freely. As her career began to gain momentum, Ren Jiao appeared in small roles, attended high-profile gatherings, and entered social circles where influence was currency. The spotlight grew brighter. So did the pressure. Maintaining an immaculate image became mandatory. Pleasing powerful figures became routine. According to industry observers, these environments blurred professional boundaries and normalized silence. At the same time, another rising star was drawing national attention. Yang Xuwen, 1 year younger than Ren Jiao, had just broken through with a leading role that turned him into a household name. Backed by Huayi Brothers, one of the most influential entertainment conglomerates in China, his future appeared secure. To the public, he represented success achieved the right way. Talent, opportunity, and timing aligned. Their paths would eventually cross, quietly at first, then under growing scrutiny. To outsiders, it looked like coincidence. To those familiar with the industry's hidden mechanics, it suggested something else entirely. Because on an October night in 2017, in the historic city of Suzhou, the illusion surrounding Ren Jiao's rising career would collapse. What followed would be officially labeled an accident. But for many, the questions left behind have never faded. And once those questions are asked, they become impossible to silence. To understand how Ren Jiao found herself at the center of one of the most disturbing controversies in modern Chinese entertainment, it is necessary to look beyond the individual and examine the machinery that surrounded her. Her story did not begin with tragedy. It began with promise. Yet promise, within a highly centralized and hierarchical industry, often attracts forces that are far more powerful than the person carrying it. Ren Jiao entered the entertainment world with qualities that the industry valued above all else. She was young, conventionally beautiful, and camera-ready. From her earliest appearances, casting directors and photographers responded favorably. But admiration alone did not translate into stability. According to long-standing industry commentary, the Chinese entertainment system operates on an informal but rigid hierarchy. At the top sit producers, investors, and senior figures whose approval determines access to roles, media exposure, and long-term viability. Below them are agencies and management companies that function as intermediaries, controlling talent and negotiating their value. At the bottom are the performers themselves, especially newcomers, whose careers can be frozen or accelerated without explanation. Within this system, mentorship is rarely neutral. When Ren Jiao became associated with Zhao Benshan, the relationship was publicly framed as guidance and support. Xiao was a respected and influential figure, known for shaping careers and opening doors that would otherwise remain closed. To the outside world, his presence appeared to offer protection. For a young actress navigating an unforgiving industry, that kind of backing could mean the difference between obscurity and visibility. However, industry insiders have long suggested that such relationships come with expectations. These expectations are seldom written down. They are communicated through invitations, introductions, and social obligations that blur professional boundaries. Attendance at private gatherings is often described as networking. Refusal is interpreted as disloyalty. According to multiple reporting accounts on entertainment culture, silence becomes a survival skill. As Ren Jiao's profile rose, her schedule filled with events that existed outside the formal structures of auditions and film sets. Dinners with investors, celebrations hosted by senior figures, after-parties where deals were rumored to be discussed away from official oversight. Each appearance strengthened her visibility, while simultaneously deepening her dependence on the system that facilitated it. At the same time, the pressure to maintain a flawless image intensified. Media narratives emphasized her resemblance to established stars, reinforcing the idea that her value lay primarily in aesthetics. According to observers, this created a fragile position. Beauty generated opportunity, but it also invited scrutiny and objectification. The margin for error narrowed. Any perceived misstep could result in exclusion. Running parallel to Ren Jiao's ascent was the rapid rise of Yang Xuwen. Younger by 1 year, he achieved national recognition through a breakout role that aligned perfectly with public expectations. His portrayal of a principled, heroic character resonated with audiences. Backed by Huayi Brothers, a company with extensive influence across film, television, and media distribution, Yang's career appeared insulated from volatility. Huayi Brothers was not merely a talent agency. It was an institution with the capacity to shape narratives, manage crises, and mobilize resources when necessary. According to corporate analyses, such conglomerates wield significant leverage over public perception. They can promote, delay, or erase stories with remarkable efficiency. Within industry circles, Yang Xuwen was regarded as a valuable asset. His image was carefully managed. His public appearances were calculated. Any association he formed carried implications beyond personal choice. When reports emerged that Ren Jiao and Yang had been seen together, public speculation framed it as a potential romantic connection. Media outlets hinted at a new celebrity pairing. Fans debated authenticity. Behind-the-scenes reactions were less sentimental. According to commentary from entertainment analysts, such pairings often serve strategic purposes. They can redirect attention, consolidate influence, or facilitate introductions between different power networks. In this context, proximity did not necessarily imply affection. It suggested alignment. What is critical to understand is that neither Ren Jiao nor Yang Xuwen operated independently. Their movements, associations, and opportunities were shaped by structures that rewarded compliance and punished resistance. Decisions were rarely made in isolation. They were negotiated within a system that prioritized profit, reputation, and control. As October 2017 approached, Ren Jiao's career stood at a precarious intersection. She was visible enough to matter, but not established enough to protect herself. According to multiple industry narratives, this stage is often the most dangerous. The individual has something to offer, but little leverage to refuse demands. It was during this period that Ren Jiao traveled to Suzhou. Officially, it was another professional engagement. Another appearance. Another obligation. Unofficially, it placed her within a setting where hierarchy mattered more than consent, and where the consequences of saying no were understood by everyone involved. The events of that night would later be described in starkly different ways. An accident. A tragedy. A misunderstanding. But before those explanations emerged, there was a system that had already conditioned silence, normalized imbalance, and blurred the line between opportunity and exploitation. And once Ren Jiao entered that space, the outcome may have already been decided by forces far beyond her control. Suzhou is a city known for its canals, stone bridges, and carefully preserved elegance. It is a place associated with restraint and refinement, not scandal. On the night in question, however, that contrast would become painfully ironic. According to accounts that later circulated online and in informal industry discussions, Ren Jiao arrived in Suzhou for what was described as a professional obligation. The details of the schedule were never publicly clarified. What is known is that she was seen entering a high-end hotel, a location frequented by executives, investors, and prominent figures who valued discretion as much as luxury. Yang Xuwen was reportedly with her that evening. Publicly, the sighting fueled speculation about a personal relationship. Privately, within the industry, it raised different questions. When a rising actress and a heavily protected male star appear together in such a setting, the assumption is rarely romance. According to industry observers, it often signals an introduction, a transfer of access, or a negotiation occurring outside formal channels. The gathering that followed was not described as a standard social event. Witness descriptions that later emerged characterized the atmosphere as closed, hierarchical, and tightly controlled. Attendance was limited. Phones were discouraged. Alcohol flowed freely. According to these accounts, the purpose was not networking in the traditional sense, but submission to an unspoken order where power was concentrated in a small number of individuals. Ren Jiao, by multiple descriptions, appeared increasingly unwell as the night progressed. Observers later suggested that her condition was inconsistent with normal intoxication. Reports referenced disorientation, loss of balance, and fragmented awareness. No toxicology results confirming drug use were ever released to the public, and official statements would later assert that no illegal substances were detected. Nevertheless, the discrepancy between witness descriptions and official conclusions became one of many points of contention. What remains undisputed is that Ren Jiao did not leave the hotel that night in a normal manner. Security footage from the hotel corridor, which has never been fully released, reportedly captured her in the early hours of the morning. According to descriptions provided by individuals who claim to have seen the footage, the image was blurred and brief. It showed Ren Jiao moving unsteadily. The interpretation of that movement would later divide public opinion. Some argued that she was intoxicated and attempting to leave on her own. Others insisted that her posture suggested panic, not imbalance. Whether she was trying to escape or being directed elsewhere is a question that has never been formally addressed. What followed came to light at dawn. On the morning of October 16, 2017, a hotel grounds worker discovered a female body in a landscaped area near the property. At first glance, it appeared unnatural in its stillness. The shock intensified as authorities confirmed the identity of the deceased as Ren Jiao. The most immediate and disturbing detail was her condition. She was completely unclothed. There were no shoes, no personal belongings, no identification. According to initial on-site descriptions, nothing that could immediately explain how or why she ended up in that state was found nearby. Authorities moved quickly to secure the scene. Media attention followed almost immediately. Within hours, speculation flooded social platforms. The location of the body suggested a fall from a significant height. The hotel building included rooms on upper floors, including luxury suites. The possibility of a fatal fall was therefore introduced early. However, witnesses and leaked descriptions noted a second troubling detail. The position of Ren Jiao's body did not appear consistent with a high-impact fall. Individuals familiar with trauma physics questioned how a fall from a double-digit floor could result in a posture described as relatively intact and orderly. In most such incidents, the body sustains catastrophic damage. Limbs are displaced. Surroundings show clear signs of violent impact. According to those descriptions, the scene did not match those expectations. This inconsistency became a focal point for public doubt. If Ren Jiao had fallen accidentally, why was there no evidence of a chaotic impact? If she had jumped, why were there no signs of preparation, no personal effects nearby? And if she had fallen unintentionally while intoxicated, why was she completely unclothed? None of these questions were addressed in the first official briefings. As the investigation began, attention turned to the last known person who had been with her. Yang Xuwen was summoned by police for questioning. The terminology used by authorities was careful. He was not arrested. He was described as a cooperating individual. According to official statements, he remained calm and compliant throughout the process. The interrogation reportedly lasted 48 hours. During that time, fragments of information leaked through unofficial channels. It was suggested that Yang stated he had been intoxicated and asleep, unaware of Ren Jiao's movements during the night. He reportedly claimed not to know when she left the room. These statements, according to later commentary, raised further doubts. Critics questioned how one person could remain completely unaware while another exited a shared space under such circumstances. Yet no charges were filed. As Yang Xuwen was questioned, another mechanism activated almost simultaneously. Media coverage began to narrow. Posts discussing inconsistencies were removed. Search terms related to the case became restricted. What had initially appeared to be a breaking story quickly encountered resistance. The narrative was tightening. Within days, the public would be presented with an explanation intended to close the case. But before that explanation arrived, the details of that night in Suzhou had already left a permanent fracture in the story. And fractures once formed have a way of spreading. As Yang Xuwen remained inside the police station for questioning, the machinery surrounding the case began to move with remarkable speed. According to official briefings, investigators conducted a thorough review of the available evidence. This included witness statements, medical examinations, and preliminary analysis of the scene. The process, authorities said, was efficient and conclusive. 48 hours after Yang was summoned, he exited police custody without charges. There were no handcuffs, no public arrest record. He was described as having cooperated fully with investigators. The phrasing itself signaled the direction the case was taking. Shortly afterward, a formal statement was released. Police concluded that Ren Jiao had died as the result of an accidental fall. According to the report, she had consumed alcohol, lost control of her behavior, climbed onto a balcony, and slipped. The fall, investigators stated, caused fatal injuries. The announcement emphasized that no evidence of criminal activity had been found. Toxicology results reportedly showed no illegal substance in her system. Sexual assault was explicitly ruled out. With that statement, the case was officially closed. For many members of the public, the conclusion raised more questions than it answered. The first and most obvious concerned Ren Jiao's condition. The report did not explain why she was found completely unclothed. No clarification was offered regarding the location of her clothing, shoes, phone, or personal belongings. These omissions became central to public skepticism. A second issue involved physics. Analysts, commentators, and ordinary viewers alike questioned the plausibility of a fall from a high floor resulting in a body position described as relatively orderly. While authorities did not release detailed forensic diagrams or photographs, the descriptions that circulated publicly conflicted with expectations based on similar incidents. A third concern centered on timing and access. If Ren Jiao had exited a shared space alone, intoxicated and unnoticed, investigators did not clarify how that scenario unfolded without intervention. Nor did they release a full timeline reconstructed from security footage, citing privacy and investigative protocols. Despite these gaps, the verdict remained unchanged. As criticism grew, public discussion began to vanish. Posts analyzing inconsistencies were removed from social platforms. Keywords related to the case became restricted. Accounts that persisted in questioning the official narrative were suspended or warned. According to digital media analysts, the speed and coordination of this suppression suggested intervention beyond routine moderation. During this period, Huayi brothers initiated what crisis management professionals would describe as image containment. Yang Xuwen disappeared from public view. Scheduled appearances were postponed. Projects were quietly delayed. The absence was presented as a consequence of stress and respect for the deceased. Behind the scenes, according to industry reporting, the strategy was temporary. The objective was not punishment, but preservation. One of the most unsettling developments occurred soon after the verdict. Ren Jiao's family, who had initially expressed disbelief and called for a transparent investigation, abruptly stopped speaking. Interviews were canceled. Online statements were deleted. Requests for follow-up were declined. No explanation was given. Two primary interpretations emerged in public discourse. The first suggested financial compensation. According to this theory, the family may have been offered a settlement in exchange for accepting the official conclusion and ceasing further inquiry. The second interpretation was darker. It proposed intimidation, arguing that families confronting powerful interests may be pressured into silence to protect surviving relatives. There is no verified evidence confirming either scenario. What remains factual is the result. The last voices capable of legally challenging the verdict went quiet. The final act came swiftly. Authorities announced that Ren Jiao's body had been cremated. The process was described as private and completed without public ceremony. No images, dates, or locations were disclosed. In many cultures, including China, sudden cremation following a controversial death is not illegal. However, it effectively eliminates the possibility of future forensic examination. For critics, this decision extinguished any remaining hope of an independent review. In the years that followed, the case entered a new phase. Without access to official channels, discussion migrated to forums, anonymous blogs, and overseas platforms. It was there that the most extreme allegations emerged, including claims that Ren Jiao had been assaulted, killed to prevent disclosure, and that her body had never been cremated at all. Some online commentators linked her disappearance to allegations surrounding the global plastination industry, which preserves human bodies for educational exhibitions. These claims asserted that unidentified or unclaimed bodies from China had been diverted into commercial displays abroad. According to these narratives, Ren Jiao's remains were allegedly among them. It is critical to state that these accusations remain unverified. No DNA evidence has been publicly produced. No independent forensic authority has confirmed such claims. They persist primarily because all conventional avenues for verification were closed. Meanwhile, Yang Xuwen gradually returned to public life. After a period of reduced visibility, he resumed acting roles, participated in interviews, and re-established his career. Media framing described the Suzhou incident as an unfortunate episode in which he had been indirectly involved. There were no legal consequences attached to his name. For supporters of the official conclusion, the case represents a tragic accident amplified by rumor. For skeptics, it is an example of how power can compress investigations into silence. Between those positions lies a truth that may never be fully known. What remains undeniable is that Ren Jiao's death did not end the night she fell. It continued through the unanswered questions, the sealed records, and the quiet acceptance enforced by authority. In the absence of transparent evidence, doubt filled the void. And doubt, once established, does not fade easily. Officially, the case of Ren Jiao ended in October 2017. A statement was issued. A verdict was delivered. The records were sealed. From a legal standpoint, the matter was resolved with finality. An accident, authorities said, nothing more. Yet for many, closure requires more than a conclusion on paper. It requires coherence. It requires answers that align with evidence, logic, and transparency. In Ren Jiao's case, too many questions remained suspended in silence. Why was she found completely unclothed, with no explanation offered? Why were her personal belongings never publicly accounted for? Why was no comprehensive reconstruction of her final movements released, despite the existence of security cameras? And why did the voices closest to her fall silent so abruptly after initially demanding clarity? None of these questions prove a crime. But collectively, they form a pattern that resists dismissal. Ren Jiao was not just a headline or a controversy. She was a young woman with ambition, discipline, and hope. She entered an industry that promised recognition, but operated by rules rarely spoken aloud. According to many who have worked within similar systems, silence is often the price of survival, and truth is negotiable when power feels threatened. Her death exposed more than a single tragedy. It illuminated the imbalance between individuals and institutions, between public curiosity and controlled narratives. It revealed how quickly doubt can be erased when information is restricted, and how easily a life can be reduced to an inconvenience that must be managed. For Yang Xuwen, life moved forward. His career paused, then resumed. No court found him guilty of wrongdoing. No legal authority named him responsible. In the absence of charges, the law considers him free of blame. That distinction matters. Justice, when it functions properly, must rely on evidence, not suspicion. But justice also depends on trust. When investigations conclude without satisfying public scrutiny, trust erodes. When records are sealed and discussion disappears, uncertainty fills the space left behind. And when families retreat into silence, whether by choice or pressure, the human cost becomes impossible to ignore. In the years since Ren Jiao's death, Her story has drifted into the realm of unresolved cases and whispered warnings. Some describe it as a cautionary tale about fame. Others see it as a reflection of a system that protects itself at all costs. The most extreme theories may never be proven. They may also never be fully disproven. What remains is this: a young life ended, and a truth that may never be fully known. The law closed Ren Jiao's case. Public memory did not. As long as unanswered questions persist, her story endures as a reminder of why transparency matters, why accountability matters, and why the absence of evidence is not always the presence of certainty. Ren Jiao deserved clarity in life. At the very least, she deserves remembrance in death. And until the questions surrounding her final night are truly answered, her case will remain not just a closed file, but an open wound in the conscience of those who still ask what really happened.